What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace of love, peace of love. My name is Talib Kweli, and I have a couple podcasts. Midnight Miracle with Yasin Bey and David Chappelle, and also People's Party. And you are experiencing the first ever live People's Party. Give it up for yourselves and for On Air Festival. I'm glad we're doing it in Brooklyn. Last time I was here on the stage, I almost caught COVID from one of you On Air motherfuckers. Is one of y'all. But today we are here and we are in full effect, and I'm gonna get right into it because we don't have a lot of time. Our guest today is the founder of Generation Now. He has a run of the most successful mixtapes in history, Gangsta Grillz. He is someone who has provided quality street music for a long time. I'm gonna name some of the artists that he's done these Gangsta Grillz mixtapes with: Yo Gotti, Fabulous, Snoop Dogg, French Montana, Fat Joe, Jim Jones. It goes on and on and on. If I read all the people that he did the Gangsta Grillz with, we have no time to do the festival. This man is a friend of mine. He is an icon. He is a legend in the culture. He is the undisputed king of mixtapes. I want you to show your love, Brooklyn, New York City, and give it up for the ultimate kingmaker, the ultimate tastemaker, Barack O'Drama, Mr. Thanksgiving, the street champion, the head honcho, DJ, the fuck drama in the house. What's up, John? How you feeling?
What's up, man? What's up, everybody? How y'all feeling?
Give it up for DJ Drama, y'all.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to do this with us. Thank you for, when I called you, I had a label called Blacksmith, and there's an artist named Jean Grae, who's from New York City.
Yep.
And when I called you to do a Gangsta Grillz mixtape, you came through. Thank you for doing that for us.
Absolutely, of course.
Jean is incredible. Gangsta Grillz was known for the streets, but Jean Grae nerded out on her Gangsta Grillz mixtape.
Which I enjoyed. You know, you named off a list of people, but it's like you said, we could be here for days. I mean, it's endless, from like Lil Wayne to Jeezy to T.I. to Meek Mill. And then, you know, I got the opportunity at a certain point in my career to really branch out, because, you know, Gangsta Grillz started as like a southern trap hip hop brand, you know, that was built around like street rappers from the South specifically. And then as the years went on, then I started to open and branch out and do tapes with Little Brother and Pharrell and Childish Gambino and Rhapsody and Jean Grae. So anytime I got the opportunity to really like to do something out of the box, I was always like, oh yeah, run it. So, you know, even for you to say like she nerded out her Gangsta Grillz, like for me, that's, you know, it was dope to have came out the way it did.
No doubt. And I'm glad you mentioned some of those Gangsta Grillz tapes. Like, for instance, the Pharrell, In My Mind, the prequel, you got Pharrell rhyming over my first single,
Crazy.
Fortified Live.
Crazy.
Whose idea was that?
He picked that beat.
Wow.
He picked that beat. You know, the way he attacked and approached that tape, which by the way, I feel is like one of my classics and one of the ones that people talk about a lot of time. But like, he really dove in some senses, obscure, abstract, and just like, you know, he didn't go in the sense of like, all right, I'm gonna just rhyme over the hottest shit out right now. Like, so like, you know, for
Liquid
Swords, like him rhyming on Trap or Die and just Fortified Live, like it was dope. So yeah, I'm sure you would, when you heard that, you was like, wow, this shit is crazy.
Yeah, like, I never thought I would hear Pharrell. I mean, that beat, Fortified Live, shout out to my man Juju. He picked that sample, and Hi-Tek made that beat, of course. But that beat is part of my success story. The first time I ever heard my music on the radio wasn't me rapping on that beat. It was Jay-Z on DJ Clue rapping over that beat.
Crazy.
And somebody else was rapping over the beat, and Jay-Z was in the session. He said, oh, throw that back on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Hi-Tek for that.
Shout
definitely shout out to Dead Prez, because that Revolutionary But Gangsta Grillz, I feel like it's one of the best Gangsta Grillz. It's underrated.
Definitely. Dope project. Another project, you know, me being a fan of theirs and knowing them for some time and coming up, and when I got that phone call to do, you know, and just the name in itself, you know, Revolutionary But Gangsta as a Gangsta Grillz is like iconic and fire. So
now, you said on that there's a song on that that's great. Instead of the Beamers, Benz, and Bentley, they got the Malcolm Bobby Huey song, right? One of my favorite Dead Prez songs. And at the beginning of that song, you shout out Free Mumia. Right?
Free Mumia Abu Jamal.
Free Mumia. Now,
Yeah.
you're West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Yeah.
I feel like the West Philadelphia came out of you when you shouted Free Mumia.
That's where I spent most of my days.
Yeah, so tell me about West Philadelphia.
Shout out to West Philly in the building. Shout out to Philly in the building. My dad lived what's called down the bottom in West Philly, like 33rd and Haverford. My mom lived in Germantown, so I pretty much most of my life split my time between Germantown and West Philly. And, you know, I came from a very politically and conscious family. And I don't know, it was a very like early age for me. I think it must have been in my, I'd have to say early mid-teens that, you know, I got familiar with Mumia's case. You know, obviously it happened in the early 80s, but somehow, some way, I mean, I don't remember where the information first hit me, but, you know, it was just when I was between them ages of 13 to 17 to 18 and moving around Philly and stuff, like I was very active in just the Free Mumia campaign, and you know, it was a big thing in Philly. So
Yeah.
you know, it was, again, to do the Dead Prez mixtape, and for me to say that on there is an ode to, you know, my beginnings and my roots, and for what people at times may assume of because of how my career to the world is known. So they hear me shouting crazy shit out on Wayne's tape or Jeezy's tape, but then again, when I get that opportunity, I'm like, oh, I'm going full fledged.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you are the product of an interracial relationship?
Yeah. My mom is white, Jewish, and my dad is black.
Right. But your parents are both active social justice activists?
Very active. My dad was very active in the civil rights movement. He was part of this organization called SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He also was a conscientious objector of the Vietnam War. So he did like 2 years in jail. And then he worked for this Quaker organization in Philly for a long time. And through that, it took his travels throughout the world. A lot of times early on in the late 80s, early 90s, like he spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe and what have you. I remember he brought me a piece of the Berlin Wall back when the wall fell. And my mom has always been an educator, but also very like active within, you know, the community and things of that nature. So I said this recently, like, my parents, sometimes they may have been even a little OD with it. Like, I wasn't allowed to watch G.I. Joe because it was about the military. I want
to get into that because I had to sneak to watch G.I. Joe. So my parents were also educators. And in particular, the one I had to sneak to watch the most was Dukes of Hazzard.
I couldn't watch Dukes of Hazzard.
See, when you was a kid,
had the Confederate flag. They never let me watch Dukes of Hazzard. Like,
but the General Lee was like a character.
It used to kill me. Like, what? Right. Everyone, these are all shows that everyone watched, and they were like, "No, you can't watch Dukes of Hazzard."
Right.
And I'm like, why?
We had the same experience. Shout out to educator parents keeping their kids on the right track.
Tom and Jerry, Disney movies,
all that.
Yeah, I didn't get to enjoy Daisy Dukes. Like, come on, robbing me of my childhood.
Right. Now, your new album is called
I'm Really Like That.
I'm Really Like That. You really, really are like that. One thing we have in common, now you just told me that you are recreating scenes from the movie Juice.
Yeah.
For your new album, Classic, Ernest Dickerson, Classic. That was the first time that us hip hop fans saw DJing.
Right.
Cutting and scratching. A shout out to DJ Scratch.
Yep.
Who did the scratches for that movie.
That's
the first time we saw that on the big screen.
Right.
Tell me about Q and how Q being not wanting to be local influenced you as a DJ.
I mean, it was everything, you know, like, I think for me at that age when Juice came out, you know, I was just going into high school. I went to the movies to go see it. And I was blown away. I was just fascinated by the DJ scenes. You know, obviously, again, I'm of that age of the hip hop generation. So, of course, you know, I grew up still, obviously, Jam Master Jay was an early influence. You know, Jazzy Jeff. And even in Philly, like, we have a huge DJ culture and always have.
Yeah, tell them about it.
But seeing it on the big screen was just a wow moment for me. And I left like thinking like, damn, maybe that's something, you know, I could get into. And, you know, GQ's character just from the battle scene to the scene where he was in his bedroom making his audition tape and everything. It's just like, it was a huge inspiration on me, like huge inspiration. And I always credit it to, you know, really being what pushed me in a direction of starting a DJ career, and, you know, convincing my mom and my grandparents to, you know, purchase me some turntables. And I basically, like, early on in my career, my mom would give me lunch money and I wouldn't buy lunch, and I would go downtown Philadelphia to Funko Mart, Armin's, Sounds Market, and just cop records.
Right. And now you're doing videos with Omar Epps and Queen Latifah and the people from that movie. That's crazy.
Crazy. It's like living out my childhood dreams, you know. And I have so many moments in my career, like, if somebody would have told me, you know what I mean? Like, just to be in that space with them and to recreating it, and, you know, giving that inspiration to others in a lot of ways. Like, you know, I'm in a point that I hear it all the time, that I'm an inspiration to a lot of DJs coming up, or even outside of DJs.
Gangsta Grillz raised a generation. There's a generation people that we're gonna get into some of that later, but that are raised on, now this is how you make a mixtape. Right.
And so for me, you know, I always like to be in a space where I inspire, because I know how much that means. Like, you know, you think about it, like, what if they would have never made that movie? Like, I may not be here. How many mixtape classics we would not have had? And, you know,
150 Gangsta Grillz mixtapes. 150 of them.
I think we had like 225 now.
You had 225, so that's an old number.
Yeah.
That's an old number.
Yeah,
like,
that number's a couple years old. I think we done took it up a notch.
Somebody online, when they found out I was interviewing you, asked me to shout out, I think the name is Emerge.
Ooh.
Graffiti artist. Ooh. From Philly.
Wow.
Right? I got that right?
What'd he say? Shout to ATS.
Is that the cover of that Illadelph tape?
It is. So there's two Illadelph tapes, Illadelph 1, Illadelph 2. I think my man Emerge did Illadelph 1. My man Saga did Illadelph 2. But Emerge was a graffiti artist in Philly who, you know, I met through my friend Saga, who lived in Germantown with me, who was another graffiti artist. But they were also rappers too. And they were a couple years older than me. So when I was in high school, I was kind of running around with them. And I mean, you know, on some hip hop shit, like, you know, they really, you know, those were the first guys that I had freestyle on my mixtapes, and, you know, mentoring me in some ways and everything. So, you know, Emerge is, he was a big early influence on me, and
no doubt.
You know, super talented dude.
A lot of people don't know that, you know, you had on those early mixtapes, you had Black Thought, Dice Raw, Malik B. You was essentially Roots crew.
Yeah.
And the first time I met DJ Drama, is funny, is that I had a bookstore in Kiru Books. If you've been in Brooklyn for a long time, you know about in Kiru Books. I used to do events at the Kiru Books. The first famous rapper who ever agreed to do a feature for me was Bahamadia from Philadelphia and the Roots crew. Right? Now, DJ Drama at the time was Bahamadia's DJ.
Yep.
So she came to perform at my event, but it was a spoken word event that wasn't even no mics or turntables or nothing.
Yep.
So Drama had nothing to do.
I
remember that? We had a freestyle session outside of you beatbox.
I did. I beatboxed.
Me and Bahamadia, Rom and DJ Drama beatbox, and then Drama also has a great friendship. One of my best friends in the world, my man Rubik's right here.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Rubik's.
Rubik's was the first, you know, when I met Ru, I was still in college, and, you know, me and Ru became roommates, I think even my sophomore year. And just off top, he was like, yo, my best friend, like, he's fire. He's about to get a record deal. Like, and Ru was, you know, always speaking your praises and saying you was about to come up. And then, I was already familiar with Most because of UTD. You know, I was a UTD fan when in the mid 90s and everything, when they put out Manifest Destiny. So, and then when, you know, it was all coming together, and then Ru told me, like, yeah, they're going to sign to this label called Raucous. And, you know, and it was just like watching y'all like really manifest it, and no pun intended, but, you know, form the group and everything. Even for me at that time, it was super inspirational, because outside of the Roots and Bahamadia, you know, being Rubik's roommate and friend and y'all friendship, it was another prime example for me of like damn, I'm watching this hip hop shit happen right in front of my eyes, you know?
No doubt.
So just to give you your flowers, like,
no, I appreciate that.
You was a huge inspiration early on for me to really even, you know, motivate me to continue and like try to get to the top.
That's crazy because I feel the same way about you, bro. Absolutely. And for people who don't, when he said manifested, no pun intended, it's like one of my first singles ever. It's this record called Manifesto. So that's even a deep cut for you to even be taking it there.
Yeah. With the demo tape, or like we had
the demo. You had my demo tape.
We was riding to that shit all the time. I knew all them records.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now you were at Clark. Your father convinced you to go to HBCU.
He did.
Right?
Yep.
And you're at Clark, and now you taking in other regions' music. You got kids coming from Texas and Florida and North Carolina, and now you making friendships with DJ Sense and Don Cannon. Tell me how the affiliate started.
So, you know, going to school in the South for me was like probably one of the best things that ever happened. You know, my one of the things my dad said to me a lot of times is like, you know, the friends that you make in college are normally turn out to be like your lifelong friends. And he convinced me to go to HBCU. I had already taken a trip to Atlanta, and I was like, oh, I could feel the energy in the city, and like just seeing so many like young people of color in positions of doing so many things and so many facets of life really excited me to go to Atlanta. And I met Sense, who was from Philly, my freshman year. I met Cannon my sophomore year, and I met my other partner, Lake Show, my freshman year, who was originally from LA. But, you know, we were all kind of just all like, you know, in the AUC, like trying to live out our rap dreams in some way. And I was making mixtapes and hustling them on campus. And, you know, Cannon came to me and was like, hey, I'm a producer. And, you know, I befriended him, and I heard his beats, and the shit was crazy from day one. He was like a baby Primo back in those days.
Right.
Like Primo was his favorite. Like we were college DJs, so we would go do parties and split $150 to $200, and you know, carry all types of equipment and record crates. And
it's before Serato and laptops.
These are those days.
Right.
And then after we got out of school, we were actually part of another DJ crew and called the Super Friends, and we had some disagreements with them, and you know, a lot of it was even based around Gangsta Grillz, because at the time Gangsta Grillz was the hottest like brand going for those in the Super Friends, and they got an opportunity to potentially do an album, and they wanted to call it Gangsta Grillz, and I was like, I don't really know if I want to give that up yet. So they kicked me out of the Super Friends, and
you wasn't in Super Friends no more.
Nah, I wasn't in Super Friends, and they and
he was in the League of Doom now.
and then you know, Cannon and Sense and my other brother Ace McLeod, Mike, who I had known since literally 7th grade. You know, he was like, man, we could do this shit on our own. Like, we don't need nobody else. And that was how we came up with the name of the affiliate.
It's funny because the word affiliate means I actually need somebody else.
Well, it was each other.
Y'all spelled it different though.
It was each other. We spelled
affiliates with a P.
We spelled it with a P. Yeah. And then like, you know, next thing you knew, we was the hot new kids on the block, and Gangsta Grillz was right in that stage of really about to just like rock it, take off. Shout
out to Jason Jeter and the whole Grand Hustle crew.
Definitely.
You becoming T.I.'s DJ at this point, and T.I. doing the leak and really embracing Gangsta Grillz really helped set it off in the South. Tell me about your relationship with T.I. and his importance to the culture.
So the crazy part about me and Tip is that around these same years, even probably before the affiliate started, I was making mixtapes again early on, hand to hand, probably 150, 200 exists of these initial ones. And I got this random phone call from Jason Jeter, and he was like, yo, I got this new artist we signed to LaFace Arista. It was TIP still at the time. And he was, you know, the way he sold it to me was like, we have this record with Beanie Siegel called 2 Glocks 9. And he was like, I got your mixtape in the barbershop. You know, I wanted to come have my artist do a freestyle for you. Mind you, this is the first time I've ever gotten a call for someone to do this. Right. This has never happened to me, like ever. And the person that comes to do the freestyle turns out to be T.I., you know, and again, this is still early on. And when he first came in freestyle, like, he said he was the king of the South, and I told Sense like, yo, this nigga's crazy. Like, this nigga just said he was the king of the South. Like,
right. That was a real crazy thing to say back then.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like me saying, yo,
it show you the power of manifestation of words. Though, like, because when he said it, people were like, nigga, you crazy.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, it's like, nah, that's the king of the South.
That's the king of the South. Yeah. So we bonded and we formed a relationship, and you know, Gangsta Grillz for those years between like 01 and 03 were pretty much just a compilation of like the hottest songs in the South, like as most mixtapes were. And then it was because Jeter called me one day and was like, yo, we should do an all T.I. and Grand Hustle Gangsta Grillz. Like, and I was like, bet, you know, because I was really paying attention to how mixtape culture was going up north on the East Coast, and what Who Kid was doing, what you know, what Dipset was doing, what 50 was doing. So that gave me the opportunity to make the type of tape that I had, you know, wanted to make, where it was just like all one artist, one album, where it was literally more like a street album more than just a mixtape, just a compilation of songs.
Yeah, T.I. says on the album, I'm gonna let you taste the dope. And what's crazy is, do you ever feel like we were maybe spoiling the artist? Because essentially in that era, you had to give a whole album out just to get people to pay attention to your album. Yeah,
I mean, you know, it was at a time when the transition happened from please listen to my demo to like, here's my mixtape, you know. So those were the years when it was like, when you would try to go get a deal or go into the offices, where it went from like, let me hear your demo, it was like, where's your mixtape and who's listening to it? You had to tease them with the dope for them to come on in and be prepared for the album. So it became literally the setup, like, okay, I gotta, you know, do a mixtape, flood the streets, get people paying attention, you know. And I did do some other numbered series ones after that, but it opened up the door for then other artists to come to me and be like, listen, I want to do a Gangsta Grillz, where it was all their music, you know.
Right.
Bun came early.
The Legend series.
Yeah. You know, that Jeezy.
You know what? Speaking of Bun, real quick, you know I got an album with Bun that I've been working on.
Yes.
Can I get a DJ Drama Gangsta Grillz drop right now live for that Bun album?
What's the name of it?
We don't know yet, but we thinking Country Cousins.
Yeah, I want to do another one, but you know, we could listen. It's country. It's cousins. Talib Kweli, Bun B, DJ Drama.
No doubt. I love it.
Just like turn it on.
No doubt. He's turned it on just like that.
Imagine if I just walked around all day and talked like that. That's what people think sometimes too. Like,
it's crazy because
like I'll be at home just, can you make me some breakfast? How'd you do the eggs?
Word. Now, shout out to Young Jeezy. The Trap or Die was very important projects. Jeezy was the first artist to pay you. Like you were saying, this opened the door to...
First artist to ever pay me. Gave me $1,000.
$1,000.
You know, and I just did something with Jeezy and Tip the other day. And it's like, even with the way like we met, like with Rue, and like, I just think about my life and just how many things are like destiny or like divine, you know. Like Coach K, who's Jeezy's
shout out to Coach
first
K,
manager, who also is, you know, one half of QC. He lived around the corner from me in sense,
right?
Like,
Fourth Ward, right?
In the Fourth Ward, like off of Glen Iris, like that was my neighbor. So, you know, that was my homie. So he came to us like, yo, I'm working with this new rapper, you know, Lil J, and he eventually changed his name to Young Jeezy. And Coach convinced Jeezy like, yo, we need to fuck with Drum, like you need to do a Gangsta Grillz. And you know, again, like I just think about like, damn, like what if I would have never moved there to have met Coach to, you know, then be a part of Jeezy, who's one of the most influential, you know, artists to ever come out of Atlanta, you know, and for us to, you know, start our path when we did our first tape, Streets Is Watching, which again, you know, was the first tape I ever got paid for. And again, Tip was like the hottest in the city. And with Jeezy, it was the first tape that, in a sense, the Gangsta Grillz brand at the time was bigger than the artist.
Right.
So when they were passing out the CDs, it wasn't like, yo, this is the new Young Jeezy. It was like, yo, this is the new Gangsta Grillz.
Right.
And then next thing you know, Streets Is Watching and the Jeezy Gangsta Grillz is the hottest thing in the Southeast. And it helped take it to another level because all the music that people had to play was off the mixtape. So the DJs, when they were in the clubs and the strip clubs or what have you, you know, it wasn't like there was no DJ versions or vinyl out. They had to play the music off the mixtape.
Right. It's your drop.
So you would go to the club and hear Gangsta Grillz drops all night long.
Right. You also were very involved, or at least around, at the time when Gucci was coming up.
Yeah.
And Gucci and Jeezy's story has become stuff of legend.
Yes.
In Atlanta, and it became a very violent and dangerous time.
Right.
And you was all in the mix of all that.
I was.
And there was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a time on the radio where you got them to speak on the radio?
Jeezy and Gucci were, you know, they had their issues, and you know, it unfortunately bled over into the streets. And there was a time when me and Jeezy had fallen out. We had our own issues, and some of that had to do with the fact that, you know, I started working with Gucci at the time. And you know, when I started working with Gucci, you know, we went on like a incredible historical run as well. So, you know, we did a tape. We wanted our first tape, just the two of us together, was called The Movie, which then like is also one of those like classic DJ drama Gangsta Grillz that people know for are always speak about. And I think it was like 2009, you know, me and Jeezy sat down and patched up our situations. And, you know, we wanted to go public with it. You know, we wanted to like let the world know like that we were, you know, back good. And at the time, Coach was working with Gucci. You know, he had stopped working with Jeezy. He was working with Gucci. And just me and Coach were talking, and then, you know, the conversations I was having with Jeezy, I just felt like, yo, like, it's not complete unless when we do this, like, somehow, some way we can all patch up our differences. And at the time, Gucci was locked up. But, you know, through conversations and everything, I just felt like, you know, if we really going to do this for the city and do it the right way, we need to do it in a way where, you know, we all patch up our differences. So me and Jeezy did a radio interview, and during the interview, Gucci called in, and that was like the first peace offering of like, you know, between the two of them, that, you know, just trying to put their differences to the side. And it was an incredible time. I mean, I'll never forget it, just in the city, because it got real bad in Atlanta because of the two of them. And like,
they're both very powerful.
They're very powerful
both connected
individuals.
To the street.
Yeah. And like, you know, there was just so many people that even they were employing, and it was affecting because it was so serious. So like, you know, if someone from Jeezy's camp was in the club, you couldn't play no Gucci, vice versa. But even like, you had security, you had like people around them that had kids that was going to school together, and like, it was just getting so crazy, like how many people it was affecting. So when we first went on the radio and did that, it was a really big deal. Like, it was like this cloud had been lifted from the city. Like, just that night alone, I remember all the clubs, how excited they were to play Icy, and it was a celebration.
Right. Were you in the room for the verses?
Yeah, I was definitely there. I had to be there.
What was the energy in that room? Because it looked crazy. The energy felt like you could cut the tension with a knife.
Yeah, it was some tension at times, but it was fun to be there. Like, just to be in the room. To be honest, it really wasn't that many people in the room. Like, you know, this is still kind of COVID era.
Yeah.
It was probably 25, 30 people in there total at Magic City. And it was a moment, you know. I remember how excited or happy Jeezy was when they performed Icy. Yeah. And I love seeing that. Like, you know, because I don't think they had ever performed that song. That was the first time
together. They did it.
They never did.
Because the beef was from the beginning, from when the song first came out.
Yeah. popped off like almost right away.
Right.
You know, the verses was in a sense like, you know, when I put it all in perspective, like what I tried to do or what I did do or what we did in 2009 was the beginning of like what we were able to accomplish in 2020, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Those guys mean so much to my career. People kept saying like, yo, it's only right if drama DJs, you know what I'm saying? And it was like, for me, the only way I would have DJ'd is if I would have been able to DJ for both of them, you know.
Right.
Outside of that, I was like, look, I just want to be here and support and like to be here for this monumental moment. And I feel like when it comes to verses, there's the Locks, Dipset, and then there's Gucci and Jeezy.
Right.
And those are like the
Let's not
the
sleep
biggest
on
ones.
a Bounty Killer and Beanie Man, because that was the first one together, and that's a real sound clash.
That was a real big one too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I have to put that one in there because that was the only real sound clash I've seen.
Absolutely.
Now you end up getting raided by the feds. The feds, in conjunction with the RIAA, you were charged with RICO charges, racketeering charges. They pulled out M16s on you. They treated you like a big drug kingpin. And I want to point out that these two, him and Don Cannon, got raided at the same time when Target and Best Buy was selling Gangsta Grillz mixtapes. Wasn't no Target, no Walmart, no Best Buy raided. Just these two gentlemen. Can you break down that story for us and take us through what was going on at that time?
It was 2007. We were just coming off of MLK holiday weekend, and we were at the studio working on my album. It was Tuesday, and I actually got a phone call. Somebody tipped me off, like, yo, you know, I heard them boys coming down there, like, y'all need to watch out. And I was like, all right, what are they coming down here for? Like, they're not coming to see me. And so I told everybody in the office, like, yo, I just got a weird phone call. Like, they said the police coming over here. So I went outside to go move my car. And as I walked outside, next thing you know, I just seen these black Tahoes with them lights on them, and helicopter flies over, and SWAT just jump out like 10, 15 of them, M16s drawn, telling me to, you know, screaming, telling me to get down, lay down. And like, I always remember just how calm I was in that situation. I think that was the first time I'd ever even had a hammer, like a gun pulled on me. I got down, and I'm still thinking it's like some mix up at this point. Like, they're not coming over here. Like, maybe it was some other studios that had some other shit going on. I was like, they must have us confused. And then they asked for my ID. And when I told them, you can get my ID, and they said Tyree Simmons, they got on their little walkie-talkies and said, we got one of the perpetrators. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so they stand me up. By this point, they had Cannon in handcuffs. They pulled him out, and they said, Tyree Simmons, Donald Cannon, you're being arrested under the RICO law for bootlegging and racketeering. And we went down the right street, sitting in the cell. Next thing you know, somebody taps me like, look, you on TV. But in that report they did, there's an officer that says, normally in this situation, we usually find guns and drugs. And this time we didn't. And it was like, I had like interns from the college working for me. Like, you know, we had about 15 employees. And, you know, their whole thing was like, tell us where the guns are, tell us where the drugs are. And it was like, they walked away and just couldn't confiscate nothing but mixtapes. So, again, I wasn't even familiar with RICO. Like,
right.
So when I got out the next day and I talked to Tip, he was like,
he's familiar.
Yeah, he was like, he was like, yo, did you check your bank account? And I was like, what you mean? He was
Right.
like, bro, they hit you got the RICO. Like,
Right.
I'm like, what you mean? He's like, check your bank account. And I went to my bank account, which at the time had multiple six figures in it, because I didn't know any better. I had never really seen no money, so I used to just let it sit in the bank and look at it, and that shit said 0.00, and I fucking cried my eyes out.
Right.
And there was a law called the True Name Law, which was basically a law that states that if you sell a physical CD, you have to have an address on the back of the CD to make it legal. And mixtapes back in those days, if people remember, had like the black casing on the back. So there was no way to put an address on there.
Right.
It was a chilling time. Like I was top of the food chain in the mixtape game, and like the mixtape world was scattered. You know, it was a frenzy. I mean, like they used to have like mixtape sites where you could buy mixtapes from. This is even before Dat Piff was a thing, like Mix Unit.
Oh, Mix Unit,
like,
yeah.
It was so many of them, but all of those sites because like Dat Piff used to give free downloads away. Like in that day, they were like the enemy to us because they were like, we looked at it as like them taking money out of our pockets.
Right, the online bootlegger.
Exactly. So majority of the top mixtape DJs at the time was like, fuck this. If Drum can go down.
No,
like,
it changed the whole game.
Changed everything.
It changed the entire game.
Changed everything. And it was a big, conversation, in so many ways because, there was the race component,
that's right.
Of how they came at us, the fine line of in the music business, because these same people that arrested me, the RIAA in conjunction, are the same people that send me plaques.
That's right.
Saying thank you for your contributions.
That's the crazy part
to
of
helping us,
right, you got plaques
records
from the Record Industry Association of America on the wall, and they also in conjunction with the feds arresting you. That's crazy.
I was somebody that was working directly with labels and with artists to do these projects. And so it just sent a real chilling effect through the whole industry. And and I also got a phone call from Atlantic Records, who I was signed to as an artist at the time, like, yo, how fast can you get your album done? We can't pay for this type of publicity. Like, this is great. This is incredible. Like,
that's that first Gangsta Grillz album.
We got to run with this.
It's a good album.
So thank you. And literally made me like more famous than I had been. And
right. Now, say hello to the bad guy. You're an outlaw at this point. And I want to thank you for your time. And I want to thank everybody for staying with us. I have one more question that I want to ask you about some of the new projects you got. But I just want to shout out that I love the Snoop Dogg project that came out recently.
Thank you.
The fact that, like I said, 150 mixtapes, he said 225 because they keep coming out. We have Simba on it. You're very vulnerable in your drops on that Simba mixtape, by the way. That's a different drama.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It's grown and mature.
Yeah. I like that.
That's the drama after having a therapist for a couple of years.
That's okay. That's drama working on himself in the drops. The recent one that I feel like I like as much as the Dead Prez one is the Dreamville one, bro. That
crazy.
Dreamville one, Jid and Earth Gang and Ari Lennox and whatever J. Cole is doing over there is crazy.
It's phenomenal.
The one that you have seen the most accolades for is working with Tyler, the Creator.
Yes.
He's an incredible artist. Call me if you get lost. When I say that DJ Drama influenced a generation, Tyler, the Creator, I feel like embodies that the most.
Absolutely.
What y'all did on that mixtape was incredible.
Thank you.
Just share a little bit about that process. Not even a mixtape, it's an album.
Yes, it's an album.
It feels like a mixtape.
It feels like a mixtape. Yeah. Tyler is definitely has to get a lot of credit in the resurgence of where Gangsta Grillz is now in 2023. Mm-hmm. I guess you could say that's what a Grammy will do. Yeah. But beyond that, just working with him, someone that I've known for the last decade, who I've been cool with and been a fan of and a comrade, but just the way his mind works, he's one of one. I mean, he's a genius, you know. So going into that project, like even before,
they call me Lumberjack because I wish a nigga would.
Incredible. Even going into that project, like before I had even done anything on it, he found some random vocals of mine, Gangsta Grillz, like vocals from a tape, and had placed them just to see how it was gonna sound. We pretty much did like 3 sessions of going over the music, him explaining to me his vision, and normally when I do my tapes, like I like to do them in my own space, but working with him, of course, I feel in some ways like I was just an instrument in his masterpiece. Did
you really have your feet out on the yacht? You really had a girl feeding you French vanilla ice cream? That really happened?
We did that afterwards.
Okay.
We did that afterwards. but even like things like that, like I would be in the booth, I would be saying some of my shit, and then he would like be like, yo, say like I'm on a boat. And I'd be like, I'm on a boat. And he would be like, oh my God, it's so crazy. And he would just like lose his mind in the studio and like, you know, shout my partner Lake. When he came to the second session and heard what we had already done, he literally said in the room, like, yo, y'all gonna win a Grammy for this. To be working with Tyler, for him to, in so many ways, to have given me my flowers by doing that with me. And also, it's weird what people know me for. Like, some people know me for Gangsta Grillz. Some people might know me because of Lil Uzi. Some people might know me because of my Wishing song with Chris Brown. People might know me because of Jack Harlow, or, you know, even people know like that's the guy that's screaming all over Tyler, the Creator's album. Right. And, you know, we went on to, you know, win a Grammy, you know, and the day that we won the Grammy, I was at Dreamville Festival. I had just put out the Dreamville Gangsta Grillz, and I was performing. I had a DJ Drama Gangsta Grillz set with T.I., Jeezy, and Lil Wayne. And it was such a full circle moment for me to be 22 years later, you know, here performing with these guys that I started this legendary mixtape series with. That's right. How much they mean in my career. And then to like, the same day win a Grammy with Tyler, the Creator. And it's just, again, it just shows you like, you know, like I say on the tape, sky is not the limit. Sky is just what we stand on to reach the beyond. And, you know, I'm a kid who went to go see Juice and said, hey, that's what I want to do. And now like I've accomplished some of the most amazing things, you know, that a hip hop DJ can say has done. So it's like, it's been an incredible journey. No doubt. We'll give it up for DJ Drama. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Shout out to always having your day ones be your A1s, and DJ Drama is a day one for me. And shout out to for Lake, sure. And shout out to Rubik's, and shout out to everybody who's been on the journey. And thank y'all for coming and joining us. This has been the People's Party. It's an honor, our pleasure to have DJ Drama.
I really like that album.